Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 891. The Evil Monarch's Declaration of War. Hai Wuya and the rest watched the sudden appearance of the wall along with the almost magical words in a dumbfounded manner. Even though they were all old demons that had lived for hundreds of years, they'd never seen something so ridiculous before. Besides that, what did those words mean? Evil Monarch? Just from the looks of this name, it should be a nickname or a title of some sort. However, nobody seemed to have heard of such a person before. Who did this name represent? In this world, evil naturally referred to the Tao of evil, or the demonic path. However, to date, was there a person who dared to proclaim themselves as monarch? If a monarch like that truly existed, would they be completely unknown? Wouldn't their reputation have been completely destroyed long ago? For this mysterious name to appear here, what was the purpose? Could it be that the person who just had the breakthrough was this evil monarch? Just as everyone's hearts were thumping anxiously, the words on the wall blazed brilliantly, and the words turned into a bright golden color. In a short period of time, the dark night became brightly illuminated. Hai Wuya, He Ji Qiu, and the rest were completely dazed. There's such a transformation also? Could it be that ghosts and gods really exist in this world? Or could it be that the person who just broke through was so overpowered that even the heavens wanted to stand witness for him? This kind of amazing transformation had clearly exceeded the understanding of everyone present. But following that, another flash of gold burst out, and more words began to appear yet again. The experts of the three holy lands were all shocked first. Then they grew serious. And finally, they exploded with rage. Extreme and utter rage. Firstly, a single word appeared right in the center of the wall, occupying the central position. Fight. The world is filled with evils, and I am its monarch. Sweeping across the lands, looking upon the pugilistic world with disdain. Where the evil monarch goes, gods howl and demons weep. Laughing at the universe, glancing at time, past and present. How bold! He Ji Qiu snorted coldly as he gave his evaluation of this unknown and fancy, evil monarch. Everyone in the crowd felt the same way as well. These words were simply too presumptuous and wildly arrogant. Who did this fellow think he was? But everyone also knew one thing: for such a strange phenomenon to appear at this point, the other party was obviously not doing it just to show off. Just his strength of being able to pass through the lightning tribulation already made everything quite clear. There must be a purpose for doing all this now. From the looks of it, they needed to continue waiting. As expected, the words that followed confirmed their guesses. The Holy Lands are unrighteous and the evil monarch shall replace them, slaying a saint with a single sword. That was just the beginning. Everyone gasped with shock. So it turned out that Xia Dongting's assassination had been caused by this same evil monarch. Punching the elusive world of immortals, kicking the supreme golden city, and when I'm bored, slapping the blood ocean. All the hypocrites of this world shall die without a burial place. The scoundrels of the Holy Lands shall all be sent into the next life. The world shall rejoice, and the oceans be at peace. Only I, the evil monarch, am fit to hold sway over the world. How unbridled! How arrogant! How detestable! He Ji Qiu cursed with rage. The others also exploded with anger. This evil monarch's tone was simply too unbearable. Although your strength is great, could you go against the mighty three holy lands with tens of thousands years of foundations in this Xian continent? People of the Holy Land, if you have the guts, Convene at the south of the city in the morning. Life and death shall be determined with a single fight, and all enmities will be resolved. When the sun rises in the morning, it will be the time for the execution of the Holy Lands. This evil monarch awaits to personally send everyone off. The Yellow River is long and winding, and the gates of death are beckoning. May everyone take note to be punctual, so as to not miss the auspicious timing and end up as wandering ghosts. At this point, the words on the wall finally came to an end. The experts of the Holy Lands were so angered that their intestines had gone green. In this world, there was actually such an arrogant person when facing the three Holy Lands. Dawn of tomorrow. Evil Monarch, Final Showdown. Hai Wuya mumbled as he read the words on the wall repeatedly. Compared to the others, he was quite a bit wiser and calmer. When he looked at this odd-looking wall, apart from shock and rage, Hai Wuya felt an even deeper sense of dread. The sense of fear that he'd forgotten long ago had suddenly resurfaced again. If the other party had no confidence, why would he write this declaration of war? Indeed, He Chiu was also beginning to calm down from his rage, and he analyzed the words again rationally. This will most definitely be a bitter fight. The chances of victory in this battle is really. This evil monarch really chose an opportune timing. Hai Wuya laughed bitterly and said, "Over half of our forces that came to Chrysanthemum City have already been split. This could be said to be our weakest moment. But he actually chose this timing to pick a fight. This old man feels that the situation is not very good for us." Not very good? It's terribly grim. He Chiu said seriously. The issues earlier had caused the people from the misty illusory manor to depart entirely, even showing intentions to turn into enemies with us. Our weapons also disappeared at that time. Right now, Brother Jean has been injured so grievously by the 14th young master. Even you, Brother Hai, have suffered some internal injuries. The three guardians that we'd been counting on have been called away to battle against the 14th young master. And now, this evil monarch with even greater strength than him has issued us a letter of challenge. He Chiu shook his head and breathed out a long sigh. As for us, we don't understand what kind of existence this evil monarch is. Before this, we haven't even heard of such a person before. This fight is completely ridiculous. If he's really the person who broke through just now, the few of us will not have much longer to live. Everyone knows this too. However, this fight is already inevitable. Hai Wuya smiled bitterly. Just as the three guardians had no choice but to accept the 14th young master's challenge, we similarly have no other choice but to accept this battle. For the sake of the Holy Land's 10,000 years' worth of reputation, we cannot retreat even half a step. We would rather all die in battle than cower from a blatant challenge. He Chiu looked at the faraway night sky and said in a forlorn manner, "Leave 2 people behind to take care of Brother Jean. The rest of us shall set off together." Hai Wuya said decisively. This person might have great abilities, but he might not necessarily be that same senior who broke through earlier. Besides, there's a limit to the strength of a single person. He's ultimately just one person. If we talk in terms of the number of experts, it's impossible for that person to have deeper foundations that are 3 holy lands no matter what. This fight might not be completely without hope of victory. Perhaps, we could swarm and take the enemy by surprise. The same strategy we used against the 14th young master back then might prove useful again for this situation. He Chiu raised his eyebrows for a moment and nodded. "I will go too." A weak voice sounded out. As the two turned their heads, the person speaking was actually Jun Mo Xie. Seeing his current state, They all gasped internally with shock. Hai Wuya's body even trembled lightly. At this time, Jun Moxie's appearance could be said to be wretched to the extreme. The left part of his body was scorched, and the right side of his body was frozen. From his face downwards all the way to his feet, everything was completely covered in this strange state of ice and fire. In just an hour, the right side would turn to being scorched, and the left side to being frozen, thus maintaining a delicate balance. The 9 Nether 14th Young Master's methods were truly gruesome. This was the result of their unique ability. The 9 Nether's searing flames and the 9 Nether's frigid wind, being imposed onto Jun Moxie's body at the same time. Every hour, the states would change. There was a name for this, called yin-yang refining soul. This yin-yang refining soul would take up to an entire day and night's effort to completely run its course. For an entire day and night, the victim would be tormented as though they were being led through all 18 levels of hell repeatedly. It was the publicly acknowledged cruelest torture method in the world. It was difficult to obtain life though one wished for it, but seeking death was even more impossible. When the 9 Nether 14th Young Master let him go previously, it was not because he truly intended to let Jun Moxie off. He released him purely for the sake of letting him suffer more. In this state of agony, even saying a single word would be while enduring great agony. In my current state, I can only at most hang on until dawn. Jun Moxie trembled intensely and spoke as he gritted his teeth hatefully. Rather than being toyed to death by the strange methods of the 9 Nether 14th Young Master, I would rather fight it out with that evil monarch. Perhaps I might even be of some use. My 2 brothers. In the fight at dawn, I'm naturally helpless to do anything. But I hope you can help me, ignite the blood-collapsing body-rending divine technique. Let me die in a more presentable manner. Blood-collapsing body-rending divine technique. Hai Wuya and He Ji Qiu both shook as though they'd been struck by lightning. Brother Jun, all you need to do is to endure for 1 day and 1 night, and your cultivation will possibly recover. Why must you go this far? Jun Moxie laughed bitterly as his face twisted with pain. So many things have happened to me in this trip, everyone has also seen it for yourself. Do you think that I, Jun Moxie, would still have the face to keep on living? Not mentioning that 9 Nether 14th Young Master's death threat. Just the matter of my face. As he spoke to hear, he suddenly sucked in a deep breath and bellowed. I, Jun Moxie, am simply living a life worse than death. Jun Moxie's profound cultivation had been sealed long ago. This sentence had been yelled out entirely by the strength of his body. His voice was hoarse and filled with humiliation and shame. Jun Moxie's heart had already been filled with death long ago. Hai Wuya and He Ji Qiu stood there mutely, their hearts as heavy as lead. They looked at each other helplessly, unable to say a single word. The night slowly slipped away. As the sky brightened gradually and the experts of the 3 Holy Lands, under the leadership of He Ji Qiu and Hai Wuya, quietly made their way to Chrysanthemum City's south gate. There was a soft mattress carried by a few people in the middle of the group, where Jun Moxie sat atop with his back straight. The left side of his face was completely red, and the right side was a frightening frost white. His body trembled uncontrollably, and the muscles on his body spasmed and twitched. But Jun Moxie's hair was actually combed neatly to the side, and his robes were clean and stainless. His eyes were filled with killing intent and determination. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 892. Is that Jun Mo Xie? The 3 guardians and the 9 nether 14th young master had already left long ago to God knew where for their battle. He Ji Qiu only left a written letter for them. And finally, he sent a letter to each holy land. At the end of the letter addressed to the elusive world of immortals, Jun Mo Xie had added a few more words. For 10,000 years, the honor of the Holy Lands has never been profaned by anyone. This Jun shall use his death to defend the name of the Holy Lands. Though some may mingle for 1,000 years, there must come a time for farewell. Today, Mo Xie shall bid everyone goodbye in advance. As the makeshift stretcher rocked to and fro, Jun Mo Xie closed his eyes lightly, allowing his memory to flow. As the ancient people used to say, all men must die. At the end of one's life, people would see fragments of their life flashing before their eyes. From the looks of it, the next stop would most likely be the final station of his long life. Jun Mo Xie was not born from the legitimate wife of the Jun family. His real mother was a mere concubine, and he was thus abhorred from a young age. Fortunately, his talent was great, and by concealing himself and meekly enduring the humiliations, he finally shocked the entire family at the age of 18 at the family's martial competition, winning first place among the junior generation. While the startling genius Jun Mo Xie managed to gain the attention of the elders in the family, he also attracted the unanimous hostility of the Jun family's direct line. The repeated persecution resulted in the death of both his parents and greater humiliation for himself. Grieving and insulted, he escaped from the Jun family. By chance, he met a famed teacher, and he cultivated painstakingly from that point on. 20 years later, after reaching the 3rd level of Spirit Xian, he once again returned to the Jun family to carry out his vengeance. All those who'd ever harmed him or wronged him were killed. Not even a single one was spared. As his thoughts traveled to this point, Jun Mo Xie, who was suffering immense pain from the yin-yang refining soul, actually revealed a gratified smile on his face. When he thought back to how those people who'd caused so much death and destruction to his family had trembled under his feet, the blood flowing freely from their bodies. That woman that he had cared so much about, groaning and crying as he pressed her under him, those white, tender skin, the beautiful glistening tears on her face, and that look of disbelief as he sliced his blade across her throat. Oh, the rush he'd felt back then. In that moment, Jun Mo Xie had almost forgotten even the agonizing pain that filled every inch of his body. Back then, that period of time was the proudest and most satisfying point of his life. The entire Jun family was all as tame as cicadas in the winter in his presence. He, Jun Mo Xie, had used his own strength and cruel methods to obtain the highest authority, becoming the youngest patriarch of the Jun family in history. Under his lead, the Jun family battled through the pugilistic world, growing stronger and stronger with rapid speed, turning them into a first-rate family. And right after that, he'd received the invitation from the elusive world of immortals. After gaining the backing of the 3 holy lands, the Jun family's growth became even faster. In these few hundred years, the Jun family had already turned into the hegemon of a large territory. And Jun Mo Xie himself had progressed from a spirit Xian expert to a venerable saint emperor. From being a mere cultivator in the elusive world of immortals, he'd even reached the heights of becoming a member of the Heaven Saint Palace. The glory of a lifetime, the brilliance of a lifetime, the self-confidence and strong-headedness of a lifetime. Perhaps he'd indeed done wrongly in some matters. But, so what? This was a world where the weak were prey for the strong. There was really nothing much to say about it. In this life, he'd lost some and gained some. To him, it was sufficient. Jun Mo Xie grieved and smiled. He half laid on the stretcher, allowing the soft mattress to support his body. Step by step, taking him to the final stop of his life. He did not bother to think about the upcoming fight. Instead, he simply replayed the events of the past in his mind, over and over again. Take the most recent incident for example, the annihilation of the Chen family. How was he wrong? He hadn't done anything wrong. If someone must be blamed, one could only blame the Chen family for being too weak. For such a weak family, to actually have the gall to witness a saint emperor like him being humiliated. If that wasn't seeking death, what was? The only pity is, the war for seizing the heavens the war for seizing the heavens that I've looked forward to for hundreds of years. This grand war of the humans. This heroic battle where one can leave their names behind in the annals of history. I, Jun Mo Xie, will not be able to make it. Perhaps this is the only, and the greatest, regret of my life. 80 li from the southern gate, there was a small hill. Even further beyond that was a large mountain. At the foot of the mountain stood a lush bamboo grove. Right in front of the bamboo grove, there was a specially cleared out empty space. A huge stone plaque stood in the middle of the empty field, with the words, "Burial place of the 35 experts of the 3 Holy Lands. May their illustrious names stand forever in memory of their great deeds." Everyone practically stopped their feet at the same time, their eyes blazing with fierce rage. The number of people who'd come out this time numbered exactly 35. Not a single person more or less. From the looks of it, the opponent knew everything about them and all their movements, to even know that Jun Mo Xie had come. The bamboo grove was silent and lonely, without a single person in sight. Why wasn't the enemy here? He Ji Qiu scoffed coldly. This stone plaque is simply too laughable. Laughing aloud, he jumped out. He didn't touch the words on the front, but on the other side of the stone plaque, he carved the words, "Grave of the Evil Monarch." After thinking about the matter for a moment, he continued writing, "Evil Monarch. Shameless beyond compare. Does not know his own limits. Stupidly audacious. Challenging the magnificent Holy Lands. Knows only tricks. But has no real strength. Ultimately defeated and killed. Becoming the laughing stock of the world and mocked for 10,000 years." After he finished writing, He Ji Qiu roared and revolved his Xian Qi. With a great push, the huge stone plaque actually turned around, and the words he'd written became the front side of the plaque. Haha, not bad. Laughing stock of the world. Mocked for 10,000 years. The legendary evil monarch. Brother He, those words you wrote are too satisfying. Only, why didn't you wipe away those original words, instead of wasting your strength to turn the plague around? Hai Wuya laughed aloud. He and other experts of the 3 Holy Lands also felt their spirits being greatly lifted, and they all clapped and cheered. He Ji Qiu chuckled softly. The battle today is going to be a fierce one of life and death. After the battle ends, there's only one side that will be leaving alive. Me doing that is to declare that the side who wins gets to wipe their name off that plaque. If we wipe our names off the plaque now, it would instead make us look as if we have no confidence, thus, I kept it like that so for now. After we win the battle, it won't be too late to erase our names from it. Not bad. Not bad. Brother He's words make sense. Hai Wuya laughed aloud. We don't have a reason to lose this battle. Let's make this evil monarch fellow enjoy the bitter fruits of his own sowing. The experts of the 3 Holy Lands cheered as their morale shot upwards. The last shred of darkness in the sky finally vanished completely. In the east, the sky was completely filled with white. The first rays of the sun had completely landed. Right now was the stipulated time. This was the timing that the evil monarch had set himself. But the experts of the three holy lands were also anticipating this moment. After this instant, all their doubts would be resolved. The mysterious enemy that had all along been hidden would finally reveal themselves. Whether the mysterious enemy's strength was really high enough to shock the world, or whether it was another person, everything would be revealed. Thus, everyone waited silently. Any of these people were all experts who'd experienced hundreds of bitter battles. All of them were old dough sticks that couldn't be any older. There wasn't any impatience at all, and their faces were calm and casual. As for life and death, these people had already seen through such matters long ago. Even Jun Mo Xie, who was enduring immense pain, turned focused and serene in the instant the sun appeared. Although that look of serenity looked so comical on his half-red, half-blue face. However, it still displayed his unyielding determination. 35 pairs of hawk-like eyes stared intently at the bamboo grove before them. As for the other three directions, nobody even bothered to look in that direction. Because there wasn't a need to. The sun's rays illuminated the great earth, and the east was finally bright. Neat footsteps rang out orderly and quick. On the left and right side, two groups of people came into view at the same time. Their movements were light and fast, like two strands of smoke, passing over the lands and arriving before the bamboo grove in an instant. Each troop had 36 people, making up 72 in total. All of them walked over in an orderly manner, their eyes staring straight in front. It was obvious that these troops had extremely strict discipline standards. Hai Wuya and He Ji Chio's faces sunk bit by bit as they looked at the 72 soldiers. Even without looking at each other, they could tell the shock in each other's hearts. It turned out that their opponent was not a single person. But the power of that person's forces was also quite spectacular. Because every single one of these soldiers was an expert. A top-tier expert. Among these 72 people, even the weakest was at the third level of the Venerable realm. There were 19 fourth-level Venerables, 31 first-level saints, and a full 22nd-level saints. As for the two commanders of each troop, they were actually formidable existences at the third level of the saint realm. Just these 72 people alone formed an exceedingly scary force. To think that in the current mundane world, such a force actually existed. How did they escape the eyes and ears of the three holy lands? In fact, they'd even been hidden from the entire world all along. Such a force was definitely not something that could be made in just a year or two. It would require the accumulation of large amounts of time. At the very least, one would need 200 to 300 years to form such a force. Just how did they do it? In that time, all the experts of the three holy lands looked at each other, too shocked to say anything. If the opponent was only one person, no matter how great that person's strength, even if it was really superior to even the 14th young master, or if it was that peerless expert who had that breakthrough in the Chrysanthemum City, although they would be scared, they would not have been so shocked. When did this world suddenly have so many top-tier experts? Just which power did these people belong to? Why did it seem like they just dropped out of the sky to a point where even the three holy lands were completely oblivious? How could this be possible? Just what was going on? As they watched, the 72 experts came closer and closer. At a command, they formed into two neat triangular formations. Then, they stopped and stood there silently. A wide passage was left open between them, as if they were waiting for someone. The position that they'd left open also happened to be the most important spot. Could it be that the boss still isn't here yet? Hai Wuya and He Ji Qiu looked at each other, feeling their palms growing more and more clammy with sweat. Their hearts were exceedingly heavy and nervous at this point. Even with their hundreds of years of experience, they still couldn't overcome the anxiety in their hearts. Far away, the sound of more footsteps rang out. At practically the same instant, 8 more troops appeared. Each troop had roughly 30 people, and they were all hurrying towards the same direction. Although the 8 troops were moving at high speeds, they actually maintained a strangely orderly form, with not a single soldier out of place. They were like 8 sharp arrows, shooting towards them. In a short time, they'd arrived. The commander at the front raised his voice and called out, "Formation." Over 300 people instantly changed their formations in an orderly manner. The original 2 triangular formations integrated perfectly together, joining with the rest into 2 large triangular formations. This was actually a winged formation. 2 people stood at the front of each wing, one dressed in robes as black as ink and the other in robes as white as snow. Eagle god of the savannah, solitary eagle, the hurricane swordsman, Feng Wan Yun. Right now, the both of them had actually reached the peak of the 4th level Saint Realm. The distance between them and a Saint Emperor was just a single step. As for the 8 troops that they'd brought with them this time, the cultivation of the soldiers were all comparable to the first 2 troops that had arrived. Including the commanders, there were a grand total of 308 people. Hai Wuya and He Ji Qiu were nearly on the brink of a mental breakdown as they examined each soldier. All of them were Venerable Realm and above experts. Among them, there were 2 peak 4th level saints, 6 3rd level saints, 92nd level saints, 171st level saints, 33 4th level venerables, and 7 3rd level venerables. This was a completely inconceivable matter. Could it be that we're all stuck in the same nightmare together? Even the 3 Holy Lands did not have this many experts of such high average strength. The shockingly powerful force before them was already sufficient to sweep through the entire Xian continent unrivaled. In fact, if the Heaven Saint Palace didn't interfere, this power would be great enough to sweep through even the 3 Holy Lands. A threat of this level had even exceeded the dangers that the strange races posed. After all the Saint Emperor experts belonged to the Heaven Saint Palace. When did such a force appear in this world? All the experts of the Holy Lands felt their scalps growing more and more numb. And these people were actually still waiting for their leader to arrive. In other words, all these people were under the control of a single person. This was the military force of a single person. Such a realization had caused all the Saint Emperors and Saints of the 3 Holy Lands to feel incredibly frightened. To think that such a powerful force had been hidden for so long, the 3 Holy Lands are in danger. Just who was it that they were waiting for? Regardless of who it was, it would definitely be an unparalleled hero. A soft laughter suddenly rang out, and 2 people appeared within the green bamboo grove. 1 man and 1 woman. They looked like an immortal couple, clad in robes as white as snow. The man was handsome and elegant, like a clear jade tree in the wind. The woman was peerlessly beautiful, like a fairy descended from the heavens. These 2 people walked out smoothly from the serene bamboo grove, approaching the crowd step by step. Casual and graceful, they stepped onto the path that had been deliberately opened by the menacing troop. The 2 looked like a pair of a golden boy and jade girl, stepping on clouds. When the over 300 experts saw the 2, they immediately revealed looks of respect and reverence, as if they had seen the gods in their hearts. All of a sudden, Jun Moxie, who was sitting on his stretcher, suddenly screeched aloud, as if he'd seen a ghost. Jun Mo Xie. That's Jun Mo Xie. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 893. What I want is to destroy. All the experts of the three holy lands were truly stunned this time. Because the two people that had walked out of the bamboo grove so casually had indeed shocked them so much that they couldn't even speak. Because to the three holy lands, this man and woman used to be the greatest thorns in their eyes. They were walking disasters that had to be eradicated. And quickly. There was also a time when they did not have to worry about these two anymore. Because they had already confirmed the deaths of these two threats. One of them died after being encircled by a group of saints, while taking 3 saints to the grave with her. The other died inside of Tian Fa forest, killed personally by the hands of Saint Emperor Jun Moxie, along with Snake King, Green Hunter. In any case, those two had already died and were just a thing of the past. Counting time since then, the three holy lands had already enjoyed 3 months of peace. But at this time, at this very moment, their entire world was completely overturned. The great enemies that they thought had become a thing of the past turned into mere memories. And the grand villains of history actually come to life again. And they were standing in a lively manner right before their eyes. Furthermore, their cultivations had also improved greatly. How could Jun Moxie, the main person involved, not be shocked? How could he not be shaken to the core? Seeing that familiar youngster's face once again looming in front of him, it was as if his head had been ruthlessly smashed with a rod, causing his mind to spin. Even the resolve that he had a moment ago to put on a front had completely disappeared like smoke. Jun Moxie, Saint Emperor Jun, are you very shocked? Look at that red and green face of yours. Although this matter is rather surprising for you, it shouldn't be to that extent, right? You're a Saint Emperor expert. A lofty character high up and above everyone. Ah! Your current appearance is truly a bit too out of character. Jun Mo Xie said with a light smile, his voice carrying a hint of disdain, and his eyes flashing with shocking coldness. Jun Mo Xie, could it be that you're that evil monarch? Hai Wuya sucked in a deep breath and steadied himself as he stepped in front of Jun Moxie. In that moment, he only wished to say that they'd really miscalculated too much. Compared to this youngster before them, what was the legendary free and natural physique even worth? If just a youth with the free and natural physique was enough to cause several Saint Emperors fight over him to the point where relationships broke down, this person before them would cause others to die to get him. I've incurred honored sir's ridicule. Jun Mo Xie smiled faintly and raised an eyebrow. You must be from the illusory blood sea? Saint Emperor Hai Wuya? Indeed. It's this Hai. Hai Wuya looked at him with a light smile. Jun Mo Xie. This old man shall be bold and ask you a question, right now. Are you already at the realm of a Saint Emperor? Jun Mo Xie flung his sleeves suavely and smiled. This young master's luck had always been pretty good. Somehow, I just reached this realm without realizing. It's probably just luck. Compared to the bitter cultivation that seniors work hard on every day, this young master can only say that I feel ashamed. These words appeared to be courteous and humble, but to attain such a shocking level of cultivation at such a young age, how could it be luck? Ashamed? The ones who should truly feel ashamed are us old fellows. Compared to the rapid cultivation speed of young Master Jun, us old men are truly embarrassed. Hai Wuya laughed bitterly and continued. From what this old man knows, young Master Jun has just reached 18 years old, right? An 18 years old Saint Emperor, there's no one else in history with such accomplishments. Before the accomplishments of young Master Jun, all the countless cultivators from past to present are completely defeated. Such an accomplishment is unprecedented and will likely also be without rival in the future. I trust that even the 9 nether first young master of that year will feel incredibly ashamed. Jun Mo Xie fell silent for a moment and nodded lightly. Saint Emperor Hai has overly praised me. This young master's accomplishments might be extraordinary, but compared to the Holy Lands, it's too inferior. The 3 Holy Lands are really where the great talents reside. Its power is great beyond comparison. Ah! This young master has been forced to escape from the hands of the Holy Lands many times in the past, almost losing my life many times, and only surviving by luck. The prowess of the 3 Holy Lands are indeed admirable and unforgettable. All the matters before are indeed a miscalculation on the part of our Holy Lands. To end up forming an enmity of death with young master is no doubt the greatest mistake that our 3 Holy Lands have made in these 10,000 years. Hai Wuya breathed out a long sigh, and his expression seemed to contain endless regret. Shaking his head, he continued. If there's such a thing as going back in time in this world, given young master's amazing talent, this old man would surely try to the best of my ability to avoid becoming enemies with you. In fact, this old man would try to at all costs to form a good relationship with young master. These words, whether it be his tone or expression, were truly, completely sincere. Anyone who heard it would definitely be able to tell that these words had come from the bottom of his heart. Jun Mo Xie looked away with some sadness. It's a pity that such thing as "if only" does not exist in this world. The words "if only" are simply nothing but useless talk. Indeed, young master's words are right. Hai Wuya raised his head slowly. This old man has stayed in the Heaven Saint Palace for 300 years. But I've never imagined that such a stellar character like young master would actually appear in this world. On the path of cultivation, seniority has always been determined by cultivation. Young master may be tender in years, but your cultivation has reached the same level as this old man. But this old man can be considered to have lived several hundred years in vain. Today, I shall put my face aside and ask you an honest question. Hai Wuya took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Then, he opened them again shakily, and as if he were using all his strength to form the words, he asked, if the 3 Holy Lands could offer young master an apology, and even compensations of an equivalent value to you, would young master be willing to come to an understanding with us, turning swords into plows and ending this pointless slaughter? Is there still any leeway for turning between our 2 sides? Hai Wuya asked in a hoarse voice. With his status, for him to say such words was already an extremely humble thing. Is there still any leeway? Jun Mo Xie mumbled softly. All of a sudden, he smiled. This smile had a faint mockery towards life. Nodding slowly, he replied, Senior Hai, I believe that you didn't say those words out of a fear of death. Instead, because of those words that you said, you are indeed worthy of my respect. Because I know that you only said those selfless words because of the war for seizing the heavens. Although you hadn't said it out loud, I can understand it. And I respect you for it. Jun Mo Xie continued sincerely. However, it's a pity that it's all too late. I trust that Senior Hai understands as well. From the start to the end, I, Jun Mo Xie, never had any intentions of becoming enemies with the 3 Holy Lands. Truly, I had not even thought of doing that at all. Not mentioning the faraway things. A year ago, I didn't even know about the existence of a 3 Holy Lands in this world. But today, I'm already at a point where I cannot turn back. Jun Mo Xie sighed heavily and shook his head. Now, times have changed. It's no longer you guys who are persecuting me. It's me who refuses to let you all off. The battle today is only the beginning. Nothing is absolute in this world. There are no enmities in this world that cannot be resolved. Hai Wuya said earnestly. Jun Mo Xie's words had indeed caused this illusory blood-seas saint emperor to feel somewhat conflicted and touched. He took one step forward and fervently said, "Our heaven saint palace can be the judge of this. No matter what grievances, we can put them down first. The priority should be on the war for seizing the heavens. The lives of the people in this continent. If you guys decided to sue for peace half a year ago, or even 3 months ago and were willing to come to an understanding with me, there might really be such a thing as a win-win situation for both sides. But unfortunately, it's impossible now. I'll still say the same thing, the circumstances are different now, and times have changed. As for this matter, your heaven saint palace can no longer interfere in it." Jun Mo Xie laughed aloud. Right now, the one who can make the decisions, and the one who holds the initiative, is no longer your 3 holy lands. It's me. Also, Old Hai. If I really listened to your words, I'm afraid that in just a half year's time, the over 300 people here with me today will turn into corpses. With no exception. I'm sure you understand what I mean. What you all want is to destroy. And what I want is exactly the same. Hai Wuya sighed, as if he still had some words to say. However, a voice sounded out beside him. Jun Mo Xie, you're simply too unbridled. You're merely holding the advantage for the time being, and you're already speaking so arrogantly? Let me tell you, it doesn't matter what kind of achievements you have right now, or what kind of force you've built up. Before the 3 holy lands, you only have a single path of death. In this wide world, no one can save you. The one who spoke was actually Jean Mu Bai. Brother Jean. Hai Wuya never would have imagined that Jean Mu Bai would suddenly jump out at this point to foil all the efforts he'd put in thus far. In that moment, he could not stop himself from shouting. Brother Jean's words might be inappropriate, but he's not wrong. Brother Hai, there's already no more leeway between us and Jun Mo Xie. We're already at a point where one side would only gain peace while the other dies. He Ji Qiu sighed and said, "The entire Jun family has already been forced to a dead end because of us. And the Tian Fa forest was also greatly damaged. Countless lives have been implicated. And the blood debt has to be paid through blood. Even this Jun Mo Xie before us, although he's managed to survive, the process he went through to stand before us was extremely perilous. And that's only the damages on their side. On the side of our holy lands, we've already lost thousands of lives. How will this immense debt of blood be wiped clean?" He Ji Qiu shook his head heavily. Of the over 1,000 people sacrificed thus far, even the weakest ones were on the level of superior supremes. Moreover, there's also the elusive world of Immortal's Palace Lord, Mo Wu Dao's blood brother, Mo Xiao Yao. I trust that even if the Heaven Saint Palace personally came out to appease both sides, this hatred is still not easy to resolve. So today, we can only fight. Jun Mo Xie smiled, his pearly white teeth gleaming. His face was so sinister it was as if he were a primordial savage beast. Hai Wuya no longer said anything. His expression was filled with desolation and sadness. After a long time, he bit down on his lips with regret. Pity. What a pity, if an outstanding person like Jun Mo Xie was our friend instead. What difficulties are there in this world that could not be overcome? But having him as an enemy is too dangerous. If he cannot be killed in one fight, then, before long, in just 3 or 5 years' time, there might no longer be a 3 holy lands in this world anymore. To this point, this old man is very certain. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 894. Could it be a scheme? Hai Wuya laughed bitterly. Last time in Tian Fa Forest, he was just a 3rd-level venerable. Although it caused us to gasp with surprise, his actual strength hadn't been enough to enter our sights. But now, he already has strength equivalent to us. More shockingly, only 2 months or so has passed from that time to now. Everyone, do you really not understand what this means? He Ji Qiu shrugged his shoulders expressionlessly. Even if he's more talented, he's still an enemy. At this point, although we're unwilling, we can only accept it. The more talented the genius is, the more we should get rid of him before he has equal power to us. That is the only way for the calamity to not deepen. Time, fate, life, and even the will of the heavens wishes to toy with men. We can only follow the mandate of the heavens. Hai Wuya breathed out a long sigh and turned to face Jun Mo Xie. Young Master Jun, with regards to the results we've arrived at today, this old man feels exceptionally regretful. From the looks of it, there's no avoiding a battle today. This old man has some words on my heart that doesn't feel good if I don't say it, so I wish to say it beforehand. Please speak. Jun Mo Xie uttered lightly. Even though they were enemies, he at least still felt a bit of respect for this old fellow. In this battle, we will be trying at all costs to destroy young master. If we left an enemy like you alive in this world, none of us will ever have a peace of mind to eat or sleep. To the 3 holy lands, you are an existence akin to an apocalypse. Hai Wuya continued bitterly. To destroy a peerless genius with my own hands, a matter like burning treasured wood for fuel and cooking the crane for meat truly pains this old man's heart. Likewise. Old Hai, your words are exactly what I feel as well. Jun Mo Xie said comfortingly. Like Senior Hai, this young master will also be going all out, using every method to obtain victory. This is a battle to the death anyway, so there's already no need to mention such things. Life and death will be left to fate, and riches and honor depend upon heaven. Chuckling lightly, he continued. Old Hai is frank and forthright, filling this young master's heart with delight. The Holy Lands are full of despicable and shameless bastards, but there are still the rare few heroes and upright people. Although we are standing on opposing sides, this young master's admiration and respect will not be withheld from you. Iron-blooded men with pride and passion can still be found in abundance among the Holy Lands. Oh, to be able to obtain young master's admiration and respect, even if this old man is doomed to make a trip to the netherworld today, I still feel gratified in my heart. Only, who are the other, rare few, whom you speak of? Hai Wuya asked with interest. Ning Wu Qing is one, and the wandering venerable Mo Xiao Yao is also a respectable opponent. A look of reminiscence appeared on Jun Mo Xie's face as he continued. This young master cannot understand. There are countless experts of exceptional ability in the Holy Lands. Why is it that when a person steps into the Holy Lands, most of them will lose their original spirit, turning into another self who for the sake of the Holy Lands would even be willing to invert right and wrong, confusing even themselves? Jun Mo Xie's words carried a hint of mockery and some sarcasm. But this same sentence actually sounded like a clap of thunder in Hai Wuya's heart. Hai Wuya's body shook, and his expression changed greatly. He even took several steps backward in shock. This half-hearted question of Jun Mo Xie's had caused him to comprehend something. For all these years, the obscure veil that had always clouded his heart was finally shattered. The Holy Lands gathered all the experts above Spirit Xian, allowing them to advance continuously. But when these experts arrived at the Holy Lands, they experienced the enormous disparity between themselves and the others. Their bodies, hearts, and mind, all these areas were continuously impacted. Until all the pride and self-confidence they had built up in the outside world was completely worn away, becoming mere memories of the past, or just a joke to laugh about, beginning their life anew with the Holy Land. Such methods were extremely cruel, but it had a nice name to it: Nirvana rebirth, broken before success. Like that, many people woke up after the continuous setbacks, once again plunging madly into cultivation to raise their strengths. In that way, the strength of the Holy Lands rose rapidly. But there were more people whose hearts turned cold because of the mental impacts, directly unleashing the perverseness of their most deeply hidden inner selves. These experts who were heroes of the mundane world ended up losing their self-confidence, their pride, and their arrogance, turning into despicable people on the level of common ruffians and hoodlums. Every year, regardless of at what level, there would always be such people appearing, subsequently being eliminated and relegated to the outer force of the three Holy Lands. From certain angles, such forces were simply equivalent to the three Holy Lands' cannon fodder. Nirvana rebirth, broken before success. There was indeed a need, and the results were even very effective. Only from this way could one truly touch the realm of a true expert. One could say that this process was very necessary. And because it was like that, nobody had ever questioned it before of thousands of years. However, this was not the only method. There were countless other gentler methods, which could also achieve the same effects. Such a method completely destroyed the nature of a person. It was easy for a poor man to become rich. But for a rich man at the height of his success was suddenly thrown back to the lowest levels of society to climb back to the peak again, there were only a scarce few in the world who could achieve something like that. Even without doing anything, for those people who just joined the Holy Lands, which one of them were not shocking geniuses of their generation? Seeing the deep cultivation of those seniors before them, as long as these people had a heart, would they not know how to work hard themselves? But the greatest benefits of such a method was not the so-called nirvana rebirth, broken before success. Rather, it aimed to destroy all the pride, confidence, and individuality in the hearts of these people, leaving only the mark of the three Holy Lands branded in their souls. All these were based on the interests of the Holy Lands. Moreover, there was still another thing, the greatest pretense under the heaven, and also the moral pillar which was imprinted in the minds of everyone: everything was for the sake of the world, for the future of mankind, the war for seizing the heavens. Thus, everyone suffered willingly without grumblings or regrets. The pride was gone, so was self-confidence. It was the equivalent of pulling out the backbone of these people and cutting off their escape path. After that, wouldn't they be easily molded however their holy lands wished? Thus, those proud experts of the mundane world, geniuses of their generation, all turned into a pile of walking corpses as soon as they entered the fabled Holy Lands. As he thought about it, Hai Wuya felt the hairs on the back of his neck rising, and fear rose in his heart. If this was really the true purpose, then it was surely way too scary. If the legendary three Holy Lands, the greatest cultivation ground of Xian continent, is merely a place where people are broken down and destroyed, a place filled with tragedy, the victims are only of benefit to the three Holy Lands. In that case, What are the interests of the three holy lands? Could there be some huge scheme behind all this? Or Hai Wuya swayed lightly as he stood there. Beside him, He Ji Qiu was saying some things, but he couldn't hear anything at all. In that moment, he was completely preoccupied by his thoughts. In that moment, his head was filled with endless fog. It wasn't clear how much time had passed, but Hai Wuya felt someone push him, causing him to lift his head with startlement. He Ji Qiu was standing in front of him, looking at him in an anxious manner. Confused, he asked, "What is it?" He Ji Qiu looked deeply at him, his eyes complicated. "Brother Hai, the deciding battle is about to begin. No matter what matter it is, let's wait till we get home before talking about it. There's still over 30 brothers here. Whether they get to live or die, it all rests on the shoulders of us too." Hai Wuya felt his heart shudder and he woke up instantly, nodding his head lightly. In his heart he was determined. If this old man manages to survive this time, I will definitely investigate this matter thoroughly when I return. The legendary three holy lands must not be turned into someone's tool. On the other side, Jun Mo Xie had a bright smile on his face as he tilted his head to Mei Shuiyan, saying something to her. Mei Shuiyan had a serious expression on her face as she nodded continuously. "Young Master Jun, since it's a grand battle that you've set up, how should we proceed with the battle? Young Master calls himself the evil monarch and even brought an army over. My guess is that you already have a plan?" He Ji Qiu said with a loud voice. In the time that he was speaking, an unusually bleak atmosphere had already gathered in the area. He Ji Qiu's expression had also become dreary and desolate. The soft spring breeze that had been ever present in the air suddenly disappeared, becoming stern, cold, and boundless. The entire sky and lands was filled with a vast and lonesome feeling. 10,000ly sorrowful autumn. This was He Ji Qiu's famed technique. Before the battle had even started, he'd already unleashed his unique domain ability. Although both sides had not begun fighting yet, he was already fully prepared for battle and could attack with full strength at any time. Jun Mo Xie and Mei Shuiyan exchanged a glance, and Mei Shuiyan asked in a soft voice, "Do you want a brawl or a rotational battle? Perhaps a quick battle? Or?" Jun Mo Xie smiled lightly and considered for a moment. "The strength of our side far surpasses the opponent's, and swarming them with numbers and strength should be the more reasonable choice. Luo Yun and the rest had all raised their strengths by relying on the spirit stone immortal milk, and their cultivations still are not stable yet. Today's battle can be a great opportunity to sharpen their skills. We'll let these people in front of us be the whetstones for us. Thus, we cannot go for an all-out brawl. Even if we must, that will be left for a critical moment at the end. Besides, if we decide to swarm them, those few Saint Emperors would definitely deal devastating damage to our weaker forces in order to protect their own people. That's something that I cannot accept and am unwilling to accept." "Oh. So you've decided to fight them one-on-one?" Mei Shuiyan furrowed her brows lightly. Although the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops forcefully raised their cultivations to this level, their experiences of such high-level battles are still very lacking. If it's one against one, it would be inevitable for casualties to appear. That way, not only would we fail to achieve the purpose of sharpening the knives, we might even break a few knives in the process. If we set the rule for it to be a gentleman's fight, stopping when one side is defeated, it wouldn't achieve the purpose of this death battle. I have an idea regarding this. Jun Mo Xie narrowed his eyes and said, "Just watch me." After saying that, Jun Mo Xie looked at He Ji Qiu. Saint Emperor He, our side outnumbers yours greatly for this battle. If we obtained victory because of our great numbers, it wouldn't be an honorable victory. I'm sure you all wouldn't feel appeased in your hearts if you were killed that way. So after some considerations, this young master has come up with a suggestion. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 895. Condition: I want the exquisite lotus. What do you suggest? A trace of admiration appeared across He Zhiqiu's face. He'd never met Jun Mo Xie before this, and he didn't know what kind of person the famous youngster was. Now, looking at Jun Mo Xie's graceful manners and words, as well as his elegant and respectful bearings, he felt a genuine appreciation in his heart. This kid was immensely talented, yet was not wildly arrogant or overbearing. Thus, he did not detest Jun Mo Xie, this outstanding youth. In fact, he praised endlessly in his heart. A youngster like this is truly a dragon among men. Alas, fate toys with the life of men. Both of our sides are standing as enemies, unable to live unless the other side perishes. Shaking his head, he breathed out another long sigh. If the great Saint Emperor He knew what this fellow was scheming in his heart against him, He Zhiqiu probably wouldn't even need to fight, directly spitting out a mouthful of blood and fall dead from his anger on the spot. How could an evil fellow like Jun Mo Xie possibly suggest a battle tactic that was disadvantageous to himself? Moreover, the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer army was something that he'd spent great efforts to raise, and they were also the troops that he felt the most deeply about. They were also the Jun family's trump card and their main force. He would never allow this troop to suffer any sort of damage. There are 35 people on the side of the Holy Lands, from Venerables to Saint Emperors, with experts on each level. This is what this young master thinks: if we fight one-on-one, that would be too time-consuming. Why not just let the different levels of experts fight their own battles? On my side, we will send out an equivalent level of forces. Venerables against Venerables, Saints against Saints, and Saint Emperors against Saint Emperors. This would be a fair battle, with life and death lying in the hands of each person, until one side is completely defeated. The battle will be started by the living and ended only by the dead. What does Saint Emperor He think? Jun Mo Xie said with a faint smile, but his words were as sharp as swords, started by the living, and ended only by the dead. This was an extremely cruel scenario. But at the same time, it placed a huge amount of pressure on He Zhiqiu. Because for the side of the three Holy Lands, they could no longer afford to lose these 30 people. The moment they were lost, it would result in defeat in the war for seizing the heavens. While he was anxious by the implications of this battle, He Zhiqiu also breathed out a huge sigh of relief in that moment. The battle style that the other side had proposed was exactly tailor-made to the three Holy Lands' benefit. A battle like that was absolutely advantageous for the experts of the three Holy Lands and was basically guaranteed for them to win. Because the experts from the three Holy Lands, especially those from the same realm and belonging to the same Holy Lands, all had exceptionally refined coordination after having lived, trained, and fought with each other for hundreds of years, to a point where they could intricately sense each other's actions. If they were allowed to attack together, their strengths would increase by at least twofold. When the Holy Lands had sent their experts to Chrysanthemum City, they had chosen groups of people who were familiar with each other's style. As for Jun Mo Xie's side, although their strengths were high, their cultivation had obviously been forcefully pushed up using special methods. So while they had strong cultivations, their mental state was obviously unable to match up. With a single look, it was obvious that Jun Mo Xie's choice of battling style was simply akin to seeking death. Good. Young Master Jun is straightforward indeed. We'll decide on this then. He Qiu did not turn around since he already knew the strengths and cultivation of all the experts on his side. There's 35 people on our side. 3 4th-level Venerables. 5 1st-level Saints. 7 2nd-level Saints. 8 3rd-level Saints. 9 4th-level Saints. And 3 Saint Emperors. He Qiu smiled lightly and continued. That means that there'll be 6 different battles. Only, for the last fight between Saint Emperors, this he wishes to have a solo fight against young Master Jun, properly witnessing young Master Jun's amazing techniques. It should be like this. There is no issue. Jun Mo Xie promised without hesitation in a broad-hearted manner. Although everyone on the 3 Holy Lands side were listening expressionlessly to the conversation between the two, their eyes were filled with a trace of excitement. With the few hundred years of coordination between us, our attacks and defense together have already reached a point of being perfect and seamless. Jun Mo Xie, you're simply sending your subordinates to die by our hands. Don't blame us for being merciless later. Behind Jun Mo Xie, the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer soldiers did not show any signs of emotion at all. They were like a bunch of stubborn rocks, unmoved by anything. However, a heavy sense of battle intent surged into the air and enveloped the entire army. One reason for today's decisive battle is because this young master had been forced by your 3 Holy Lands to an unbearable point. Secondly, there should be some stakes for such an exciting battle. Truthfully, that is the main purpose of this young master. If we win, what then? And if we lose, what of it? He Qiu furrowed his brows slightly, thinking that those words were truly somewhat shameless. This brat obviously saw that our forces were scattered, and thus took the chance to challenge us to a decisive battle. But when it came out of his mouth, it was that the 3 Holy Lands had forced him to an unbearable point. Those words are truly a little too lacking in conscience. However, He Qiu didn't mind since he also had some confidence in coming out victorious. Besides, even if Jun Mo Xie didn't talk about any conditions, he would mention them himself. Since Jun Mo Xie had already brought the matter up, he would not only be thought of as a cheap person, he would also end up falling into the ditch he'd dug himself. Naturally. How can there be no stakes and conditions in a decisive battle? Young Master Jun, please speak. He Qiu had a sly smile on his face like an old fox as he thought to himself. You little brat still reeking of your mother's milk, you finally fell into my trap. Old gingers are still the spiciest On the other side, Jun Mo Xie was also smiling evilly as he thought to himself, this old fox finally fell into my trap. Small chili peppers are still the hottest 2 foxes, one old and one young, both harbored their own schemes against each other. Both of them had great confidence in their chances of victory and were smiling smugly to themselves as they looked at each other. If we win, the 3 Holy Lands must stop interfering in the mundane world and cease their actions against the Blizzard Silver City, Situ family, Duanmu family, and the Dongfang family. From here on out, these forces will no longer be under the control of the Holy Lands, forming a force of their own. This is the first condition. Jun Mo Xie said with a light smile. That's only natural. If you all come out victorious here, our 3 Holy Lands would also not have the face to continue persecuting those mundane families anymore. He Qiu said with a casual smile as his brows twitched lightly, little brat. You're still too naive. To think that you've even thought of the conditions already. The second condition is that if we win, The three holy lands cannot go against us anymore. At least not until the war for seizing the heavens is over. Jun Mo Xie grinned sinisterly. He'd only said that the three holy lands could not do anything him, but he never said that he couldn't do anything to them. This was the true trap. He Ji Qiu had only been cultivating painstakingly in the Heaven Saint Palace for so many years. So how would he guess that Jun Mo Xie's words would be so full of traps? Without even thinking, he directly agreed. That is also natural as well. If you win, all of our enmity from before will be written off. And everything, be it debts of gratitude or revenge, shall be greeted with only a smile in the future. Jun Mo Xie snorted in his heart. Debts of gratitude or revenge shall be greeted with only a smile in the future? Are you high on something? Even if you're willing, this elder brother is still unwilling. As for the third condition, from the Heaven Saint Palace's exquisite lotus cluster, I want a stock of exquisite lotus with at least 3 segments from the root of the 9-segment exquisite lotus. Jun Mo Xie chuckled lightly and brought up the condition he wanted the most. That one is impossible. He Ji Qiu did not even consider and refused directly. The exquisite lotus is a palace treasure of our Heaven Saint Palace that we've protected for at least 10,000 years. Not to mention a complete stock of the exquisite lotus. Even if it's just a single petal, it's not something that can be exchanged outside. Please change this to another condition. If it could be easily exchanged outside, I wouldn't have mentioned it at all. Jun Mo Xie replied coolly. Saint Emperor I trust that you can also tell that my first 2 conditions are as good as having no conditions. Right? In addition, the extremely disadvantageous battle conditions that I proposed earlier is to justify this last condition. If you can't even accept this condition, then there's no point to our battle today. I'll be the one suffering a huge loss entirely. Could it be that Saint Emperor does not even have this much resolution? He Ji Qiu furrowed his brows heavily as he cursed in his heart. This brat is surely too shameless. What is called the first 2 conditions are as good as having no conditions. This old man has already agreed to both conditions, but you actually treated it as empty words. Shaking his head helplessly, he said, the exquisite lotus is the set treasure of the Heaven Saint Palace. Although this old man has already spent hundreds of years in the Heaven Saint Palace, I've only seen it once or twice in total. This is definitely not something that this old man can make the decision on. Young Master Jun, aren't you purposefully making things hard on others? Take it that I'm making things hard on purpose or begging you. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you obtain it by stealing or robbing. In any case, I insist to have it. There's no negotiating this matter. Jun Mo Xie demanded rudely and unreasonably. If Saint Emperor does not agree, then I might as well make this battle into a full-force fight. I trust that Saint Emperor can also see that there's a huge disparity in strength between our 2 sides. We have over 10 times the experts on our side. If not for that last condition, did you think that I would opt myself into such an unfavorable battle format when I have all the advantages? If an all-out fight begins, I can guarantee that no matter how amazing the strengths of Saint Emperors are, not a single person from the 3 holy lands shall be able to leave this place alive today. He Ji Qiu's voice grew cold as his eyes flashed menacingly. Young Master Jun, are you threatening this seat? Laughing coldly, Jun Mo Xie met his eyes. Threaten? Is there a need for me to threaten you? I was simply mentioning a fact. Saint Emperor you brought those people out here. And you have the responsibility to bring them back safely. I've already given you an option and told you the way to assure their safety. Whether or not you want it is entirely up to you to choose. How am I threatening you? If you don't agree, I will simply slaughter all of you, then go to the Heaven Saint Palace to discuss with them directly. No matter what, I, Jun Mo Xie, will definitely get my hands on the exquisite Lotus. He Chiu stared steadily at him for a long time. Then he sighed and exchanged a few words with Hai Wuya through their spiritual sense. After that, he turned around and with his face steeled with determination, he opened his mouth to say something. Yet, at this time, a loud voice rang out in the air. Fine. This old man accepts your condition. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 896. First Battle. Battle of the Venerables. Just at this time, a who sound rang out, and 3 figures appeared in the middle of the field, without a single sound. Before this, nobody even noticed their arrival at all. These were exactly the 3 guardians of the Heaven Saint Palace, the all-seeing Rakshasa Qiao Ying, the heart-seal sky sword Cheng Yin Xiao, and the willful wild saber Chu Wu Hui. Qiao Ying's hair was wild and messy, and her face was pale. Cheng Yin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui's robes were both torn, and faint traces of blood could be seen on the corners of their mouths. Their faces were slightly yellow, and it was clear to see that they'd suffered some internal injuries that weren't light. The smile on Jun Mo Xie's face froze as he cursed the 14th young master in his heart. That bastard is really useless. To actually let all 3 of these idiots return like that, not even managing to leave one of them behind. Even if you just delay them, that would have been fine. But great. The 3 of them are here together now. And this young master has been caught by surprise. Even if their battle prowess is not completely there, they are still a major threat. You've agreed? You mean to say that the 3 of you guardians are also participating in this battle? Jun Mo Xie said with an ugly look on his face. No, they're not participating. They don't have the leisure to join your fight. All they're doing here is to act as witnesses. Just like them, this young master is also here to witness the fight. An eerie voice rang out, seemingly far and seemingly near. Another figure flashed, and a black shadow floated to the ground. The figure was clearly standing there, but he didn't seem to have any presence at all, as if he didn't actually exist. To make such a strange appearance, this was none other than the 14th young master. This audience lineup is a little too ridiculous. Jun Mo Xie gulped in his heart. He felt a little like a famous football player in the final game of an international tournament, while the entire world waited to watch his performance. To think that this decisive battle would actually be spectated personally by the Heaven Saint Palace's 3 guardians and the #1 expert of the world, 14th young master. No matter who the victor of this battle was, it was bound to shock the entire world. If Jun Mo Xie won, he would have shattered the current world order. In addition to the 3 holy lands, another figure would be added to the grand characters of this world, the evil monarch. The evil monarch manner. The 14th young master's body was unstained, and his black robes were neat and clean. There wasn't even a single crease or wrinkle to be found. On the other side, the 3 guardians looked much more wretched comparatively. There was already no need to inquire about the results of their battle. The winner and loser were obvious. Jun Mo Xie's heart calmed down, and he smiled. In that case, I can feel more at ease. Brat, you seem quite relaxed. If this young master hadn't arrived, your over 300-strong force would have been completely eaten up by those 3 guardians. Don't think that just because they look rather wretched right now that they don't have the ability. It would still be a piece of cake for them to destroy your entire force. How are you going to thank this young master? The 9 nether 14th young master said with a light smile. I must naturally thank you. As for the method of thanks, how about a gift of the full song laughing proudly in the pugilistic world? Jun Mo Xie said with a light smile. Oh. It's you? It's really you. The 9 nether 14th young master's eyes widened with happiness and excitement as he looked at Jun Mo Xie. Who else if not me? Jun Mo Xie smiled lightly and said. Even if you didn't come here, my guys wouldn't necessarily be slaughtered by the 3 holy lands. At the most, this daddy can just take out the Hongjun pagoda and magic everyone away before disappearing myself. Even the 9 nether first young master wouldn't be able to find me. If I didn't have at least this amount of ability up my sleeves, would this daddy come out here and risk my neck? Did you think that this daddy is stupid? However, since you've come to offer your services for free, I shall use a single song to placate you a bit. This daddy has plenty of modern and cool songs in my head, enough to let you listen to for hundreds of times. From the moment that Cheng Yin Xiao arrived, he and Chu Wuhui had been staring at the over 300 soldiers behind Jun Mo Xie with wide eyes. The more they looked, the more shocked they became. The cultivation of the two of them had already exceeded the peak of this mundane world. Their eyesights and their experiences were exceptional. With just a single look, they could already see the value of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops. Although the battle strengths of the 300-something people in front of them were high, they were not enough to be placed in the sights of these two guardians. However, there was quite possibly a mystical technique which could raise a person's strength and potential behind the existences of these people. And that was something that nobody could resist. The two of them exchanged a glance, and their eyes lit up with excitement. If a magical technique could raise a person's strength quickly really existed in this world, it would be a great fortune for the entire human race. One could even form a mighty army, crossing over the Pillar of Heaven's mountains and wipe out the strange races for good. Jun Mo Xie, we've already agreed to all your conditions just now. But since it's a bet, the stakes must be fair. You've only mentioned the conditions of our loss. But what happens if you lose? Cheng Yin Xiao laughed and said. It can't be that only you can raise conditions, and we're not allowed to have any requests, right? There's naturally fairness in a bet. If you have any conditions, you can also say it. This young master here will wash my ears and listen carefully. Jun Mo Xie smiled faintly and said. From the looks in the eyes of this sky sword wild saber duo, how could he not know what conditions they wanted to put forth? Was there even a need to think about it? As expected, Chu Wuhui immediately replied. We only have one condition. If our side wins, you and your subordinates will join the Heaven Saint Palace and become part of our strength. What do you say? Cheng Yin Xiao chuckled lightly and added. There's no need to worry about the problem of safety. As long as you become subordinates of the Heaven Saint Palace, no one in the 3 holy lands will dare to do anything to you. Because if they offend you, it means that they're going against the Heaven Saint Palace. Even Mo Wu Dao wouldn't dare to do that. That way, it's also the equivalent of removing the greatest troubling matter in front of you. There will no longer be any more troubles. Fine. I promise. Jun Mo Xie also answered without any hesitation. In any case, he wasn't going to lose. So what was the harm in making a promise like that? The swift and direct way in which Jun Mo Xie agreed was so unexpected that even Cheng Yin Xiao and Chu Wuhui were taken aback. They almost didn't dare to believe their own ears. He agreed just like that? Could it be that he was actually so confident? Even the 9 nether 14th young master could not help but look at Jun Mo Xie with shock. With his experience, he could naturally tell that in terms of individual strengths, the experts of the three Holy Lands had a clear advantage. Whether it be the stability of their cultivation, or the strength of their mental states, all of them were well-seasoned warriors who'd gone through hundreds of battles. In contrast, on Jun Mo Xie's side, although their battle intent was also extremely potent, and each of the soldiers had a fearlessness towards death that was extremely shocking, and their startling discipline and intense killing intent was far above the people on the Holy Land side, but their cultivations were not stable nor pure. There was also a feeling as if they hadn't fully gotten used to their realms after advancing too forcefully. A lineup like that was likely bound to meet with repeated defeats. Why had Jun Mo Xie agreed so unhesitatingly? Good. Young Master Jun is indeed straightforward. Cheng Yin Xiao praised. Regardless of the result of this battle, this Cheng expresses his sincere admiration towards young Master Jun's forthrightness. This battle today, whether life, death, victory, or defeat, will be determined by the will of the heavens. With us three guardians and the publicly acknowledged number one expert under the heavens 9 nether 14th young master as witness. Both sides cannot go back on their words. Otherwise, that person will be pursued relentlessly and killed by the four of us together. The 9 nether 14th young master's eyes twitched for a moment, a little unhappy. He'd already admitted that he was no longer the number one expert in the world anymore. Yet, this Cheng Yin Xiao keeps saying it, clearly trying to trigger him. Moreover, without having first gaining his approval, he declared that the four of them would join hands to pursue and kill, that was taking liberties with his name. Since you're not learning from the lessons I gave you, this young master will only have to truly give you a harsh lesson that you will remember. After some thought, the 9 nether 14th young master's body flashed, and he walked over to the side of the field. With a swipe of his hand, a large stone rose out of the ground. Planting his B*TT directly atop it, he sat down and crossed his head, in a matter of one anticipating a great show. A decisive battle of life and death. There is only victory and defeat. The winner lives, while the loser dies. No one can say a word of complaint. Cheng Yin Zhao's face turned cold as he declared, first battle. The three Holy Lands sends out 3 4th-level Venerables. After saying that, Cheng Yin Xiao and the others backed off, leaving a wide space on the battlefield. 3 4th-level Venerables. Jun Mo Xie smiled lightly as he turned around. Old Eagle, please arrange a few people for this battle. Solitary Eagle laughed aloud, and his eyes turned sharp and fierce as he shouted. Who on our side will face the Venerables of the Holy Lands? A single organized step rang out, as all the 4th-level Venerables stepped out from within the 300 soldiers. The ground echoed with their steps, and a heavy atmosphere descended on the area. Solitary Eagle locked his eyes on the 3 frontmost people and nodded. The 3 of you then. Go. The 3 who were pointed out instantly chorused their acknowledgement and stepped out. No matter who goes out to battle, this old man only has a single request: you're only allowed to win. To win is to live. To lose it to die. If you're defeated, there's no need to come back anymore. Just pay for your sins on the battlefield and commit suicide. The 3 soldiers all had icy expressions on their faces as they chorused. If we lose, we have no more face to come back to see young master. Only death will be accepted. The 3 walked out at the same time as their killing intent surged out like sharp swords. It was just the 3 people stepping out to battle, but their momentum was like a troop of 1,000 soldiers and 10,000 horses. A bloody aura of killing intent merged together and filled the battlefield. These 300 people are extraordinary. Cheng Yin Xiao locked his eyes on a soldier of the Heaven Destroyer team and sighed. Indeed. Where in this world did so many geniuses come from? Chu Wu Hui's face was grim as he nodded. Apart from the two at the most front, none of the others are even over 40 years in age. Brother Cheng. If I wasn't seeing this with my own eyes, I would scarcely be able to believe it. Cheng Yin Xiao half closed his eyes and looked solemnly at the battlefield. What's there to not believe? That Jun Mo Xie is not even 20. But he's already reached the level of Saint Emperor. That is much scarier and much more unbelievable. I believe there must be some kind of secret technique in his or his master's hands, which can raise a person's strength very quickly in a short time. Furthermore, there are no side effects. This discovery is not a small matter. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 897. Heaven, Earth, Man, Three Extremes Killing Formation. The three Venerables that the three Holy Lands sent out this time all came from the elusive world of immortals. The three of them looked at each other and smiled suavely as they stepped out with their robes fluttering lightly in the wind. Although they were about to fight a deathly match, their bearings were casual and easy. Their steps were confident, and although they were facing the fierce auras of the opponent, they did not seem to be worried at all. One side was dressed in white, with casual attitudes and gleaming swords by their side, while the other side was donned entirely in black, with fierce murderous auras. The contrast was exceedingly stark. The two were like naturally extremes of each other, and this time, they were standing on opposite sides, preparing to begin a battle of life and death. From your point of views, which side do you think has a higher chance in this first battle? Xiaoying furrowed her brows lightly and asked. This is a battle of life and death. Losing means death. It isn't easy for our holy lands to nurture experts. Each expert needs several hundred years of bitter training before they can reach their current levels. These people here are all the main forces of the war for seizing the heavens. But a single miscalculation by Mo Wu Dao had resulted in such a pointless battle. What a heartbreaking scene. Even though our statuses are high, the decisions of the Holy Lands are not something that we have a right to question. The choices made by all the palace lords in the past are actually rather similar as well. I can only say that this Mo Wu Dao's luck this time was simply too rotten. To come across a little monster like this that hadn't appeared in even 100 generations. Chu Wu Hui said with a light sigh. However, I still feel quite confident that this match will go in our favor. Cheng Yin Xiao nodded with approval. The three from their side has huge amounts of killing intent, and their auras and determination is fierce and firm. Against normal enemies, just their fearsome auras will be enough to frighten their enemies and allow them to win with ease. However, this is also because they were unable to control their auras with ease, resulting in their auras overflowing like this. In a battle against high-level experts, this kind of killing intent would easily reveal their every move and location. Smiling casually, he continued. One must know that in a battle, there will be many fast-changing situations. The movements of experts of such levels are too fast to follow with the naked eye. One can only react using their senses. Although the auras of the opponent seems fearsome, it also reveals their fatal weak points. In contrast, the experts on our side are relaxed and calm right from the start, showing no such weakness. Even before the fight began, they've already won half the battle. There's no longer any need to worry about the results. At this time, the three experts from the Holy Lands were standing face to face, their auras rising faintly. Looks like our guys have already seen through the opponent's weakness. My guess is that the moment the battle begins, they will move to thoroughly disrupt the opponent's pace right from the beginning. That would be the correct way to handle them. Chu Wuhui nodded with satisfaction. In this battle, although our side would also suffer some injuries, the damage would not be too serious. As for the three on the other side, I can already announce their death right now. Cheng Yin Xiao nodded his agreement. Their expressions were relaxed and casual. Although it was only the first battle, obtaining a great result this early would undoubtedly greatly increase everyone's morale. Just at this time, the three warriors from the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer side suddenly changed their original formation. The person in the center took 2 steps forward, the person on the left took 2 steps backwards, and the person on the right took on step sideways. With just a few simple steps, the three had already formed into an odd triangular formation. But this battle formation was not just a simple triangular formation. There was a sense of hidden distance within it. The person at the front raised his head and puffed out his chest. His stalwart body bulged menacingly, as if he could support the heavens and earth. The person behind him was crouching down like a prowling leopard. As for the person on the right, his steps were strange, and the side of his body faced the outside. The killing intent around his body had faded by a huge extent. This was an exceedingly strange battle formation. In this world, such a battle formation had never appeared before. That formation is truly odd. Cheng Yin Xiao furrowed his brows and said. However, his expression soon eased. However, it shouldn't affect the actual battle too much. Qiao Ying and Chu Wuhui both also nodded lightly in agreement. In a battle against high-level experts, battle formations were basically worthless. The main focus should be the cultivation and martial techniques of the individual. No matter how ingenious the formation was, in a fight between high-level experts where the battle situation was rapidly changing constantly, relying on a formation would only incur the ridicule of the opponent. Jun Mo Xie and Mei Shuayan both had a light smile on their faces as they looked disdainfully at the three guardians trying to analyze the battle formation. Those 3 idiots. Mei Shuayan smiled brightly, her eyes squinting adorably like summer flowers blooming. There was nothing absolute in the world. The fact that there hadn't been any formations that could affect a high-level battle in the past didn't mean that there wouldn't be any now, or in the future. What those guardians didn't know was that this weird triangular battle formation was actually a formidable formation that Jun Mo Xie had retrieved from the Hongjun Pagoda, the heaven, earth, man, 3 extremes killing formation. The moment the formation was unleashed, the strengths of the 3 people within the formation would overlap perfectly. There would be no distinction between them anymore. The strength of each of them would be the equivalent of the combined strength of the 3 of them together. In other words, if the 3 of them attacked together, the combined strength would be 9 times greater than normal. How could this be just a normal battle array? Please. Please. 2 voices rang out as the 2 sides suddenly clashed together. The moment the battle began, it immediately exploded with great intensity. In a battle of life and death, every move was a killing technique. There were no space for mercy. White shadows flashed across the sky as the 3 venerables from the Holy Lands attacked at the same time. In an instant, each person had already unleashed at least a dozen skills. After that, they charged in personally, beginning a fierce, close-ranged fight. As for the other side, the 3 black-robed experts did not charge forward to meet them. Instead, they first unleashed a dazzling series of position-swapping maneuver, spinning like a windmill. Surprisingly, the places where their feet landed had not changed from the start, and only the people in each position were swapped. Loud booms rang out continuously, and the battlefield was enveloped in a cloud of sand and dust. The 14th young master's eyes lit up as he mumbled to himself. This formation is truly strange, but it's really interesting. The positions of the three muscular hulks changed continuously. But no matter how it changed, the three's feet never landed outside of their original spots. All the attacks from the three Holy Lands Venerables were blocked by the foremost man, while the other two took the chance to madly attack the other sides. The three black men were switching between each other constantly, but there seemed to be a tangible and imperceptible giant net under each of them. This invisible net combined the strengths of the three individuals perfectly and evenly distributed them back to each person. Slowly, the strengths of each person began to grow more and more powerful. Only a mere instant had passed since the battle began when the initiative turned from the Holy Land's side to the defending black-robed side. Following that, as more time passed, the Venerables from the Holy Land's side were even falling into a disadvantage. The battle was becoming more and more intense. Not good. Cheng Yin Zhao's pupils shrunk and he exclaimed with surprise. What happened? How did this battle end up like this? Could it be that the strange formation of those three people is really so magical? Strange things would happen every year, but there are especially many strange things this year. A battle that was supposed to be a guaranteed win actually ended up in such a state. As expected of the strongest power of the Xian continent, there's truly nothing that capable people cannot do. A mocking voice drifted over from the side. Cheng Yin Xiao turned his head and looked at the direction of the voice. Truthfully, he didn't even need to turn around. Apart from the 14th young master, there weren't any other person who could talk that way and use such a tone while saying such mocking words. As expected, when his eyes swiveled around, the 14th young master was indeed standing several zhang beside him watching the entertaining fight, having arrived soundlessly and without warning. To experts above the Saint Emperor realm, such a distance was basically non-existent. If Cheng Yin Xiao and the others really wanted to attack in that moment, even the 14th young master would have to take quite a beating. However, that fellow was clearly courageous to approach so closely. This kind of confidence could no longer be described with courage deriving from having great skill. Jun Mo Xie looked over and scoffed in his heart. Che, what courage deriving from having great skill? That is simply the result of arrogance that reached an extreme level. He did not even put the three experts in his eyes at all, and he probably even hopes that they will attack. This young master currently still doesn't have that kind of power. If I had such strength, this young master would behave even more exaggerated, yes, more courageous deriving from having great skill. Cheng Yin Xiao completely ignored the 14th young master's mocking words. His gaze returned to the battle, and he mumbled with furrowed brows. Whether in personal strength, battle ability of the entire group, or the perfect coordination with each other, our side is clearly far superior than the opponent. Even if the few of us went down personally, disregarding our cultivation and personal strength, our coordination is not necessarily stronger than theirs. However, such intricate coordinated attacks are actually being suppressed so thoroughly. This matter is completely incomprehensible. It doesn't make sense no matter how we look at it. The Heaven Saint Palace is truly becoming more and more backward with time. How pitiful. To think that guardians who are so much more superior to Saint Emperors would actually be so lacking in judgment. Looks like the day the Heaven Saint Palace completely falls and disappears is near at hand. The 14th young master chuckled softly and said in a scalding tone. This old man can only see that the positions that those three are stepping on are somewhat strange. As for the rest, I really can't tell what is special about it. Brother 14th has amazing judgment. So why don't you enlighten us about it? Chu Wu Hui did not get angry, and instead asked humbly. Modesty and open-mindedness were traits of accomplished men. The fates of those three from the Holy Lands are already decided. They're surely doomed. A dark light flashed in the 9 Nether 14th young master's eyes as he continued. This young master said that you guys lack judgment. And I wasn't kidding. You all only saw that the formation was strange, but you couldn't tell where the oddity laid. As long as you observe carefully, you'll see that whenever those three black-robed men attack, their movements can be said to have unpredictable changes. That is the main reason why it's difficult to see through. Although the battle formation they're using is indeed strange and unpredictable, their actual strengths are far from our level. Even if their movements are exceedingly strange, it cannot escape from our eyes. As long as there is enough time, traces of clues can be found. And that is also how this young master saw through the intricacies of this battle formation. What intricacies? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 898. Ultimate Killing Trap. No matter how ferociously the Holy Land's side attacks, the burden of defense has only rested on just one person every time. This one person, or rather, this one position, has completely endured all the attacks perfectly. The head of the triangular formation. In normal cases, a triangular formation is used to attack, and the head of the formation is often used as a point to pierce through the enemy's defense. But here, it's actually a point of defense. The three looked over with rapt attention. All of them were experts of martial arts. The moment the crucial area was explained by the 9 Nether 14th young master, they instantly managed to understand the changes of this formation. The 9 Nether 14th young master continued in a low voice. That formation is truly amazing. Each time, only a single person needs to endure the attacks. Although the person blocking will have to expend a lot of energy in that one instance, but by the time the next attack arrives, they would have already changed to another person to block. The person in front will have a chance to catch a breather after the rotation, and in that way, each person will have 2 moments to catch their breaths, enough for them to recover their energy. Although it cannot be said to be completely without expenditure, the amount of energy one would lose while maintaining this formation is so little that it's basically negligible. Indeed. So that's how it is. Cheng Yin Zhao's face changed as he realized with shock. The three of them aren't using up much strength, but the guys from our Holy Lands are losing more and more energy at a constant rate. The 9 Nether 14th young master smiled lightly and continued. Not only that, while the formation absorbs the oncoming attacks, the other two can also attack at the same time. Furthermore, their targets are the same person. Which means to say that each time they attack, it's always 2 against 1. Against such a strange formation, the side of the Holy Lands is simply unable to fight to their full ability. In every round of attack, at least one of them will fall into a situation where they can't attack or contribute anything. Only 1 out of the 3 can truly launch a proper attack. On the other hand, when the other side counterattacks, all 3 of them can attack at the same time, joining hands against a single target. Even if their overall strength is inferior to the Holy Land side, they have the power of the initiative, which has also turned into an advantage. When the advantage continues to add up, it will turn into a condition for victory. Once that happens, the situation will become unresolvable, and there's only the choice of stretching their necks out and waiting for death. As he said that, Cheng Yin Xiao, Chu Wu Hui, and Xiao Ying's faces instantly changed. Don't be shocked yet. The truly scary details are still in the back. From the looks of it, this formation still has some other intricacies that allow them to stack their strengths together, achieving a qualitative improvement in power which I currently still can't see through. The 9 Nether 14th young master's eyes gleamed sharply as he analyzed the situation. From what Brother 14th said, the results of this battle has already been determined? Is there truly no way to make a comeback? Xiao Ying said anxiously. Indeed. There's already no hope in obtaining victory anymore. Based on the situation, there's only one move left to end the fight in a draw. The 9 Nether 14th young master's eyes shone coldly as he laughed in a strange manner. What move? Chu Wuhui thought for a long time, but still couldn't see a way of reversing the situation. Self-detonate immediately and drag the opponents to the grave along with you. That's the only way to end this fight in a draw. Although the other side has a huge advantage now, it's still not easy for them to endure the self-detonation of 3 powerful venerables. It's still possible to perish together with the enemy. The 9 Nether 14th young master's tone carried a hint of cruelty as he scoffed. It's only a pity that the 3 venerables from the Holy Land side are only in a disadvantageous position at the moment, and they're far from being forced into a crisis. Thus, I trust that they will not be willing to part with their lives so easily and will continue to hold on, hoping for a miracle. But by the time they realize that there is no hope of winning, the opponent's momentum will have become far too fierce. Even if they wanted to self-detonate and die with the enemy, they would no longer have the chance. Chu Wuhui and the others all turned silent in that moment. All of them were peerless experts of their generation, so how could they not understand? As long as there was a shred of hope left, who would be willing to throw away their life without trying to find a way out? Humans were all like that. There was nothing to say about it. Apart from that, they've also made a huge mistake. The 9 Nether 14th young master laughed coldly and said, from the beginning of the battle, the 3 black-robed men hadn't used any weapons, seemingly wanting to settle the fight with their bare fists. But the idiots from your 3 holy lands actually also did not use any weapons. If they'd used their weapons right from the start, although it might not have been sufficient to change the results of the battle, the situation now might be different. The 9 Nether 14th young master laughed aloud. This young master truly has no words for you bunch. Before the battle, all of you kept saying that it's a battle to the death, not resting until one side is dead, and only one side can live. Naturally, everyone should be using the most extreme methods from the get-go. Not mentioning weapons, even hidden weapons or poisons are permissible. Look at those 3 fools. Are the swords hanging on their waists just decorative items? How absolutely retarded. The moment the 9 Nether 14th young master's words came out of his mouth, a loud boom rang out, and the battle below instantly changed. Numerous dazzling sword light burst into the sky, and a sharp keen shrill surged out in all directions as a loud voice shocked the land. Kill! As the 9 Nether 14th young master had anticipated, one side finally took out their weapons. But unexpectedly, it was the 3 black-robed men. The sudden appearance of the swords instantly cut through the final defensive barrier of the 3 venerables as though a hot knife through rotten bean curd. From the moment those 3 drew their swords, they instantly used the ultimate technique of man and sword as one, charging forward with reckless abandon. Even when they were occupying the position of absolute advantage, the technique they used was actually still a mutually harming technique like this. This kind of sacrificing 800 of my men to kill 3,000 of the enemy's forces, extreme life-pitting methods was only just below self-detonation. The shocking auras instantly blasted through the entire battlefield, leaving all the spectators in shock. After being stunned for a moment, Everyone from the three holy lands instantly cursed aloud with rage. Despicable. Shameless. How immoral. Many of the experts of the three holy lands were shaking with rage as they cursed, their eyes all red with anger. Qiao Ying and the other two guardians were completely silent. At this time, the 14th young master roared with laughter. These guys insisted on keeping their useless morals and gentlemanly demeanor in a death match, but when the opponent uses the correct battle tactic to gain victory, they call it shameless. The three great holy lands are, as expected of a righteous sect. What amazing style! It's impossible to not admire them all. On the other side, Jun Mo Xie was not angered by the furious cursings of his enemies. Instead, he was laughing so hard that his entire body shook uncontrollably. This bunch of brain-dead Holy Land dumbass are truly interesting. When they're winning, they were so loud and exuberant. The moment they are in a disadvantage, they scold and curse so passionately. Shui Yan. Ah, how did you end up losing so badly to these retards in the past? I'm truly quite curious. Mei Shuiyan's face reddened as she rolled her eyes at him. The people of the Holy Lands might be a bit despicable, but no matter how shameless they are, it's not even 0.001% of yours. Look at the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer teams. They were such a bunch of forthright and iron-blooded men originally. But what kind of people have they become in your hands? Each one of them is sly and cunning, behaving like common hooligans. You are wrong. This is a battle of life and death after all. One naturally needs to seek victory regardless of the method. They want to pretend to be gentlemen, but we can't accompany them in their stupidity. Are their lives more important than being gracious? This young master is completely speechless at this display of idiocy. I certainly wasn't the one who taught the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer teams those things. If you don't believe me, you can ask those men yourself. In the battlefield, is seeking their own survival more important? Or are those so-called morals, reputation and graciousness more important? Anyone who'd stepped into a true battlefield would understand these things. Do they still need me to teach them? Jun Mo Xie said with some unhappiness. In this moment, the situation in the battlefield had already changed greatly. The three Venerables of the Holy Lands had completely fallen to an absolute disadvantage. Under the crazed hack-and-slash style attacks of the enemy, all their coordination, battle formations, and such were completely gone. They could only block in panic, hiding and running. They didn't even have the time to draw their own weapons. It was as the 14th young master had said. It was too late. Victory and defeat had already been determined long ago. Three roars rang out as the three black-robed figures leaped up with their shiny swords gleaming sharply in their hands. On the ground, three white-robed figures wobbled unsteadily, as though they were drunk. Their bodies were riddled with scars, and blood flowed constantly from their wounds. With another flash of sword light, the three descended yet again. In that space, the three Venerables from the Holy Lands finally managed to pull out their swords. In an instant, three bright sounds rang out as their long swords were unsheathed. Holding their weapons in their hands, they managed to stabilize their bodies. Behind them, the experts of the three Holy Lands all heaved a loud sigh of relief at the same time. At long last, they could see a ray of hope. Now that the three had drawn their swords, they should at least be much better than fighting with their bare fists. The 14th young master furrowed his brows lightly and looked at Jun Mo Xie suspiciously. He couldn't understand at all. In a situation where they held the absolute advantage, why would he make such an unnecessary move? To actually allow his opponents to draw their swords? Wasn't this just creating trouble for themselves? On the other side, a look of pity flashed across Mei Shuiyan's face as she sighed lightly. Jun Mo Xie chuckled evilly as he proclaimed in a low voice. The good show is finally about to begin. Haha. Behind him, the 300-something hulking black-robed men all looked up with strangely passionate gazes. Though it took a long time to describe, everything had happened in a short time. The 3 black-robed men dropped from the sky, the swords in their hands shining with shocking power, thoroughly sealing all paths of retreat for the Holy Land's Venerables. The 3 on the ground instantly lifted their swords at the same time to block as they channeled all their energy into their swords. Their hearts blazed with rage as they thought to themselves, as long as I block this sword, that will be the death day of those 3 black-robed bastards. Because although the momentum and power of the 3 black-robed men were shocking as they attacked from above, their movements were full of openings in that moment. If they didn't manage to kill their opponent with that strike, they would be in a deathly situation. Could they really be that confident? The 3 guardians looked at the final strike of the battle with rapt attention as doubt arose in their hearts. Screech. The light sounds of weapons clashing together rang out, and Chu Wuhui instantly stomped his feet with anger. Shut! They're using divine weapons. All 3 of them are using divine weapons. How fecking despicable. The blades in the 3 black-robed man's hands were undoubtedly all legitimate divine weapons. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 899. Outside Bet. It turned out that this was simply a giant trap, allowing you to draw your sword at the last moment, giving you endless hope, but in an instant sending you plunging back to the bottom of hell, never to rise again. Under the disbelieving eyes of everyone, the swords clashed together. Like a ray of sunlight piercing through the clouds, the Holy Land's Venerables' swords did not even manage to last for a fraction of a second as they were sliced clean through. A sound made by great swords smashing against swords actually sounded as light as an axe chopping against a block of wood. Practically without slowing down at all, it continued through without pause. Blood flew high into the sky. Amidst the blood-curdling screams, the blades of the 3 black-robed men rose and fell, instantly unleashing 3 strokes in unison. The first stroke broke apart the opponent's swords, slicing into the enemy's shoulders, almost cutting them through to the waist. The second stroke slashed upwards towards their other shoulder, causing 3 dismembered arms to fly several zhang outwards. The third stroke slashed horizontally, throwing 3 heads high into the sky. Qiao Ying closed her eyes and looked away. On the Holy Land's side, everyone was staring in shock and disbelief as they watched the 3 heads tumbling through the sky. In that moment, they'd already become incapable of thought. A moment ago, they'd clearly witnessed their side drawing their swords and regaining the advantage and turning the situation around. The other side had made a crucial mistake, and from the looks of it, their side's victory was at hand. But before they could even react, they'd already lost. How was that possible? Just what was going on? The 3 black-robed men stood over the dismembered bodies of their opponents like death gods, their bodies drenched in blood. With a loud shing sound, 3 blades returned to their sheath in an instant. The 3 hulking black-robed men raised their eyes and looked at the crowd coldly, before turning around and returning back to their respective troops. First battle. Evil Monarch's victory. Chu Wuhui gritted his teeth and announced. The results of the battle was already clear. As the judge, even if he more unwilling to open his mouth, he had to announce the results. On the side of the Holy Lands, Everyone's eyes were red and their breaths were heavy. Each of them were gritting their teeth so hard that they produced screeching noises. However, no one opened their mouths to say anything. All of them recognized a single point. Today's battle was battle of life and death. Life or death were the only results. With that as a precondition, it was only to be expected that all kinds of methods, no matter how despicable, could be used. Losing meant dying, so there was really no argument in blaming the other party. Died a wrongful death? Then you can only blame yourself for being careless. You can only blame yourself for not using your strongest techniques. You can only blame yourself for not being despicable enough. But no matter how you want to blame, the only thing you can't do is to blame your enemy. Without waiting for the 4 judges to say anything, 5 white-robed men had already walked out. 5 first-level saints. The second round of the battle had officially begun. The faces of the 5 from the Holy Land side were filled with killing intent. Their hands were gripping onto the hilt of their swords tightly as they walked, their momentum's fierce and unstoppable. While they were walking with such an imposing manner, their clothes actually did not move at all. Even the corners of their sleeves did not shake in the slightest. 2 of the experts were from the elusive world of immortals, 1 from the supreme Golden City, and 2 from the illusory Blood Sea. Jun Mo Xie, send your men out. The saint standing in the lead said as he stood out and stared at Jun Mo Xie coldly. These 5 would definitely not make the same mistakes as the 3 before them. Before the fight had even started, they were already prepared to draw their swords. This fight was bound to be much fiercer than the one before it. A few second-level saints took this chance to come out and pick up the 3 corpses scattered on the battlefield. Looking at the horribly dismembered body parts, each of them had a solemn and grievous look on their faces. Jun Mo Xie, hurry up and send your people out to die. What are petty tricks and schemes worth? Did you think that obtaining 1 round of victory by fluke using despicable methods means that you've already won? As he saw Jun Mo Xie laughing and speaking casually to Mei Shuayan beside him in an unhurried manner, completely ignoring him, that saint flew into a rage and roared again. Finally, Jun Mo Xie turned around and looked at him with a faint smile. There's an ancient saying that goes, an army burning with desperate indignation is bound to win. Perhaps you all can try being more indignant to your heart's content. Who knows? You might have a chance at winning this round. The fact that I'm not in a hurry to send my men out simply means that I've extended the time you get to live in this world. The few of you, it's one thing to not be grateful. After a short pause, young Master Jun chuckled coldly and continued. Why? Are you making that pitiful face to try and scare this young master? Feck. We've agreed beforehand that this is a battle of life and death. Your guys were useless. So they died. Why? You can't accept it? The 5 of them were so angered that their chests heaved heavily. As they stared back at him, they only wished that they could spit a mouthful of saliva on that detestable face. The person in the lead growled with hatred and replied, the few of us naturally know what a battle of life and death is. There's no need for you to tell us. Although our comrades have died, this old man has a responsibility to collect a debt of blood in their stead. Ages to ages, the pugilistic world endures even as brotherhoods grow and fade away. If revenge breeds revenge, will there ever be an end to it? Jun Mo Xie lamented dramatically. The various enmities and vengeance of the pugilistic world truly harmed countless people. Since the ancient days, how many beautiful and happy families have been torn apart because of a single pointless killing? 5 noble saints. If you truly feel deeply attached to the 3 brothers who died earlier and can't bear to be apart from them, why don't you just draw your swords and stab your own throats? That way, you can naturally be reunited with them again. What is the point of seeking revenge? Why don't you kill yourselves instead? Could it be that you don't wish to see your brothers again? There's no need to hesitate any longer. Just a single slash, and you will be able to reunite again. How straightforward would it be? The moment these words rang out, everyone's faces turned exceedingly ugly. Even the three guardians with incredible mental fortitude were also completely stumped as they looked at Jun Mo Xie speechlessly. Nobody could have thought that a person with such thick skin and such shamelessness would actually exist in this world. To think that he could actually speak on the side of the principles of righteousness, while persuading others to kill themselves. To even be able to put it in a way so noble that it would be letting down the heavens and earth. Letting down their family, and even letting themselves down if they didn't commit suicide. Ha ha ha. The 14th young master roared with laughter as he praised. This brat is truly shameless. The extent of his shamelessness indeed has the style of the three holy lands. Indeed, indigo blue is extracted from the indigo plant, but is bluer than the plant it comes from. To use such a method to deal with the three holy lands. How truly refreshing. How fecking satisfying. Cheng Yin Xiao and Chu Wu Hui didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What is this awe? If you want to praise Jun Mo Xie, then so be it. Why must you drag the Holy Lands into it? The Holy Lands sometimes act somewhat embarrassingly, but they are still passable on the surface. When have they been this shameless in such an open manner? On the other side, the five saints were trembling with rage, seemingly about to explode at any moment. Yet, young Master Jun was still standing there and lecturing them patiently. Moreover, how can this be a place for vengeance? This is a battlefield where both sides pit their lives against each other. You guys coming out simply means that one side has already finished with their preparations. Revenge? Are the brains of you retards spoilt? I originally wanted to let the few of you live for a little longer. But looks like there's no need for that now. It's really hard to be kind. In the next match, there will probably be people coming out to take revenge for the five of you as well. At least you don't need to worry about being lonely on your journey through the Yellow Springs. Young Master Jun. A sharp tongue does not necessarily result in a victory. Hai Wuya said with a low voice. This Saint Emperor Hai's face was completely black, and he was obviously not feeling very good in his heart. The advantage of a sharp tongue might not necessarily result in a victory, but inverting black and white is the specialty of the three holy lands. Jun Mo Xie laughed coldly and finally raised his voice. The enemy sent out 5 first-level saints. Who will go from my side to tear the enemy apart? I will. 171st level saints stepped forward at the same time, the eyes of every single one of them blazing with battle intent. In this short 1 year plus, the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer soldiers had gained strength and power at a speed akin to a dream. After that, they'd ran about reaping lives like madmen. Whether in spirit or body, all of them had been forged into true killing machines by Jun Mo Xie. To them, battles had already become a happy and joyous activity. Especially a situation to fight and slaughter saints. How many chances would one get to do something like that in their lives? Thus, all of them naturally vied for the spot. Without even turning his head, Jun Mo Xie commanded coldly. Heaven Destroyer Team. 9th Platoon. The 5 at the back. Step forward. Fight. Yes. 5 black-robed men stepped out in unison, a tune of death resonating from their steps. 10 emotionless eyes stared forward and locked onto the 5 saints, as if they were only looking at 5 corpses. Their hands were also gripping onto the blades on their waist. Like their opponents, the 5 of them were also prepared to draw their blades at any time. What do you think about this fight? Xiaoying asked. The battle hadn't even begun, but the killing intent in the air had already reached a level that exceeded even the intensity of the previous match. For the time being, it's difficult to say. But based on their strengths, it should be same as the last match. Our side still has the greater advantage. Furthermore, there will not be any underestimations this time. On paper, we should be able to take this match with no issues. But for some reason, this old man does not dare to say that for certain. Cheng Xiao furrowed his brows and said, "What's there to not be certain? I've been watching those 3 guys from their side after the battle. Those 3 had simply been relying on that strange formation, as well as their incomparably fierce divine sabers to unexpectedly take the first match. However, those 3 weapons are still hanging by their waists now. It hasn't been passed to the 5-man team." Chu Wuhui said with a faint laughter. Divine weapons like that could cut through steel like mud. Even if there's just a single one of them, it would already be a rare treasure in the world. For 3 to appear at the same place and time is truthfully exceedingly shocking. Old Cheng, do you think that this entire army of 300 all has a treasured divine weapon like that? That would be the greatest joke that this old man has ever heard of in 1,000 years. The 9 nether 14th young master looked over and smiled in a strange manner. Oh. Chu Wuhui. Could it be that you feel that your side has the confirmed victory in this battle? If that's the case, how about the 2 of us have a little bet? Bet? How do we bet? Chu Wuhui and the others raised their eyebrows and looked at the 9 nether 14th young master. Very simple. I'll bet that the black side wins, and you all will naturally bet on your Holy Land side. The 9 nether 14th young master snorted and said, "Whoever loses will have to dig out 1,000 earthworms from this place without using xian qi or spiritual sense, relying entirely on the strength of the physical body." Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 900. 5 elements array displaying its might. Earthworms? What is the use in that? Even if you have some weird fetish for earthworms, I don't want them at all. Chu Wuhui said warily. What is this fellow trying to do now? What is the purpose of such a strange bet? I have no uses for earthworms as well. It's just a little bet for fun. I simply want to look at you digging for earthworms. That's all. The 9 nether 14th young master shrugged his shoulders with disinterest. Don't you want to see how I look like while digging for earthworms? Fine. This daddy will accept your bet. Chu Wuhui gritted his teeth and said, I don't believe that this bunch's luck will continue to be so good as to win 2 in a row. I'll say it first. Brother 14th. If you win, you can't go back on your words. Whoever goes back on their words will be a son of a beach. The 9 nether 14th young master said with a light smile. Deal. Whoever goes back on their words will be a son of a beach. Chu Wuhui nodded. This old man may not be a match for you in a fight, but do you think that you're invincible in gambling too? 14th young master. Just wait to start digging. I'm also eagerly awaiting to see who will be the one digging for earthworms later. The 9 nether 14th young master said confidently. On the other side, Chu Wuhui and Cheng Xiao were speechless, not knowing if they should be laughing or crying. Was this still the same number 1 expert under the heavens? Was that still the same Heaven Saint Palace guardian Chu Wuhui? Why were those 2 behaving like kids now? As they talked, the 2 groups on the battlefield had already clashed together. In almost the same instant the fight began, everyone had already drawn their weapons. Blade lights flashed everywhere, illuminating the sky. On the side of the 5 black-robed men, the moment they stepped out, it was done in the exact same instant, in unison. The distance between each of them was the same, and if one observed carefully, they would see that there was a strange rhythmic feel to their movements. East, south, west, north, center. Each position was occupied by one person. The distance between each person was exactly the same, without the slight deviation. The formation was completed in an instant. Following that, the 5 shouted and began to run madly. Apart from the person in the center who remained motionless, the 4 people on the outside ring all took a large step. This step of theirs was not forward, but in circles instead. All of them were running around the person in the center. Just as everyone was feeling bewildered by this strange formation, the 5 white-robed saints had merged their sword lights into one ray, piercing forward. On the other side, Chu Wu Hui's mouth was slightly ajar as he watched the battle. This is another strange formation. Could it be? The absolute confidence in his heart dipped slightly in that moment. As for the 9 nether 14th young master, a faint smile that was undetectable by others appeared on his face, as if he were saying, as I expected. The sounds of metal clanging rose into the air. As the 4 black-robed men on the outer ring met the attacks to the best of their ability, they still maintained the continuous movement of the formation. The attack from the Holy Land side was clearly directed at the person on the east position. However, before the sword ray even came into contact with him, the opponent in the south position had already appeared before them. The fierce saber in that person's hand turned into a streak of lightning as it struck downwards at them. When they'd just managed to deal with the attack, another saber was swinging straight for their faces. At that moment, all 5 of them felt as if they were each being encircled by the crazed attacks of 4 enemies. The situation was clearly 5 against 4, but it somehow felt as if they were all fighting alone, 1 against 4. Where were their allies? The opponent's battle formation was like a giant arc, with no weaknesses to exploit. Their opponents were like slippery eels, impossible to grab a hold of. But when they attacked, it was like a pack of ferocious leopards. The more he looked, the uglier Chu Wu Hui's face became. Because he realized that the 5 saints from the 3 holy lands were steadily slipping in a disadvantageous position. As for the hulking fellow in the middle of the 4 rotating soldiers, the person who was likely the core of the formation, he hadn't even moved from the start. Too shocking. This was clearly a 5 against 4 scenario. How did they end up being in the disadvantage? Jun Mo Xie was smiling lightly, and Mei Shuayan had a relaxed look on her face. The 2 of them did not seem to be worried in the slightest. Formations were truly mysterious and amazing things. It could let the weak defeat the strong, and even if the object of the formation was changed to the human body, though the effect would be somewhat weakened, it would still display shocking power. 5 elements array. That was the name of this 5-man rotating formation. Each of the 5 persons' position represented the 5 directions: east, south, west, north, center, as well as the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. At this moment, the array had only just been started, and it hadn't reached the point of truly drawing in and utilizing the power of heaven and earth. Once a period of time passed and the amount of energy accumulated to a certain level, it would generate the power of the 5 elements, complementing, countering each other, in a perfect manner. The 5 black shadows gradually formed into a circle of black light. Although the 5 saints from the Holy Lands had powerful battle strength, they were simply like a tiger trying to eat the sky, not knowing which way to start biting from. They were completely suppressed and could only defend passively. Who would have thought that this battle would have ended up in such a state? The battle scene was completely the same as the last battle. Chu Wuhui had a bitter look on his face. From the looks of it, he was about to go digging for earthworms in a short moment. Utterly depressed, he snorted. Are they stupid? If they can't win on the ground, can't they just jump into the air? Are their movement techniques only for show? How infuriatingly stupid. The 9 Nether 14th young master looked at him with a sideway glance, while his spiritual sense remained locked onto the battle below. A strange look appeared on his face, and he did not say anything. Qiao Ying's sharp senses instantly discovered the change in the 9 Nether 14th young master's expression as she asked, "Brother 14th, have you discovered something else?" The 9 Nether 14th young master shook his head slowly, as if in deep thought. "I've indeed found something. However, I can't understand it." Qiao Ying was about to continue asking when the crowd suddenly gasped. Looking over, she instantly understood what the 9 Nether 14th young master meant by not being able to understand. Because she herself also couldn't think through the problem. Because in that moment, the 5 first-level saints from the Holy Lands suddenly jumped into air as what Chu Wuhui had said. The 5 of them all had the same thought. We'll unleash the sword and man as one after we jump into the air. Even if we have to suffer heavy injuries. We'll slice those detestable bastards apart. Only, the most unexpected thing happened. As they leapt into the sky, the 5 black-robed men also followed them up. Although they were floating in the sky, their formation had not changed at all. It was as if they had flown up effortlessly. Seeing the looks of surprise on the 5 white-robed saints' faces, Jun Mo Xie laughed smugly to himself. Idiots. At this point in the battle, the momentum of your chi is already leading them now. No matter how you move, they can still follow after you with ease, using your strength to defeat you. No matter if it's on the ground or in the sky, the results are the same. On the ground, you all would at least still have the chance to catch a breath. But with your body suspended in midair, you guys do not have any chance at all. The 5 black-robed soldiers can completely rely on the pull of your strength, completely not even needing to exert any strength. The more you fly into the air, the faster this fight will end. Sure enough, the higher they went, the stronger the power of the 5 elements array became. It was so overbearing that the 5 saints were unable to catch a single breath, not to mention muster the strength to unleash their powerful skills. Amazingly, the formation in the sky changed yet again. The 4 people who'd merged into a black torrent suddenly stopped as a person broke away from the formation, gradually revealing a golden brilliance. Then, another person got out of the battle formation while emitting a faint green ray of light. The 3rd person was covered in blue, like the emptiness of the sky, while the 4th person is completely red, like a burning flame in the air. The person in the middle had a yellow luster around his body, shining dazzlingly. The brilliant radiance around them expanded, and the next movement finally appeared. 5 elements together. Heavens and earth shake. A ray heart appear. Gods and ghosts weep. A flash appeared, and the sheen of a saber suddenly appeared from the yellow light in the middle. The white-robed saint in the lead was currently using all his strength to fend off the encirclement attack of the other 4 when a saber suddenly stabbed toward him. Greatly startled, he retreated madly. However, his chi and momentum were already tightly linked to his opponent's. How would it be easy for him to escape? This retreat instead caused the full force attacks of all 5 of his opponents to be concentrated on him. In that instant, 5 sabers chopped down from all directions. 5 sabers as heavy as mountains smashed down towards him. He only had time to let out a wretched cry as the 5 sharp sabers chopped down onto his body. The white-robed body was instantly torn into over a dozen incomplete pieces. With blood spraying wildly in all directions, the mangled body fell down from the sky. In the instant that the body was cut apart, the 5 different colored lights did not stop. Like a dazzling rainbow, it rushed towards the other 4 remaining saints. The sabers were like numerous heavy mountains, like the waves of a mighty river, or a vast ocean. Kill! The 5 black-robed men roared at the same time. Fresh blood bloomed in the sky constantly, just like the bright fireworks on New Year's Day. Only, these fireworks were ignited with the lives of saints. At this point, the victor was clear. The 3 Holy Lands no longer had the ability to reverse the results. Chu Wu Hui's face had turned as dull as the color of mud. This is bad. As popping sounds rang out continuously in the air, Hai Wuya and He Ji Qiu both closed their eyes tightly at the same time. The muscles on their faces spasmed uncontrollably. The minced meat falling from the sky were saint-level experts of the Holy Lands. The entire area was completely speechless. In the first match, the opponent had won without a single casualty. That could be said to be the result of a sinister method, a win by fluke through surprising their enemies with divine weapons. That was still a reasonable explanation. But the second battle, were they still going to continue looking for excuses? These were saints of the 3 Holy Lands. A single first-level saint represented 500 years of bitter cultivation. This story will be continued to chapter 901. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.